a cabal of colonists with hammer and tongs against gold after his campaign resulted in the Department of Education banning some materials. The torrent of invectives came in the midst of filing even dismissed cases. The council asked the newspapers to allow go a rejoinder. In other words, a right of reply. The area newspaper just ignored. That helped today's efforts for right of reply. But in my opinion, that is also the day when the press council in Manila died. Today, only Cebu has a functioning press council. That's not because I come from Cebu. That is organized in 2011. The council addresses replies, it acts on complaints against media, it has addressed issues raising of minors, decriminalization of obscenity, etc. 4 years before the right of reply bill surfaced in Congress, it was the Cebu Press Council that first raised the issue against Senate Bill 160 and H Bill 3306. The people, West Delia of Apollo. Today, we are told by Teodoro that the right of reply has been hooked into the bill on freedom of information. It was the Inquirer that I want to go to this. That is so. Antonino, I tell you, I've never seen somebody so much. Fred, especially in letter about it. But anyway, we just laugh at it. There are only two other things I want to say now. Is an oversized Kalapati Bruce finally being dismantled at customs? In 2004, the Cebu Press Freedom Week had an editorial that said, our membership lists are porous. We still have to flush out house cows who flash oversized, self-fitted press cards or black tie microphones, notably in the Bureau of Customs. 8 years later, today, this year, Yazon signed Memorandum Order number 37. That ban ferrets out journalists to engage in illicit activities in customs. In other words, it issued 55 IDs only to legitimate newspaper outlets. Because before that, the greatest number of reporters, quote reporters, were in Bureau of Customs. What was the reaction? Those shut out have asked the Supreme Court, number one, impose a temporary restraining order on Yazon, and second, strike down Memorandum Order 37. Why? A reason. It curtails press freedom. Mr. Chavez, though I just wrote and so this, a claim of press freedom is taken with right information is misused for personal requests or corruption. Access to information anyway in custom is unimpeded. It is only the number that is reduced. No TRO has been issued. Apparently, the court does not see clear and imminent danger to press freedom. Liberty can be used as the last refuge for scoundrels, or if you prefer, Calabatis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Johnny. No? So we will now open the floor for questions. Hindi lang hausaw, no? Mababa pa yung lipad. No? Hausaw na mababa ang lipad. Anyway, there are some basic fundamental issues that we've covered for this session. No? Yung self-regulation, whether we need to really strengthen it, and we need to examine at the same time. No? So siguro ay put in natin yung conversation ng those questions. Yes, sir.
This comes from many editors in the science region. In a nutshell, and this is an open question to our speaker and also the moderator and the ones who reacted. In a nutshell, how can media be fair and have a sense of accountability when we are also being dictated by advertisers and for political clout and support? So how can we self-regulate and police ourselves when this is a reality to us?
Ownership is a fundamental issue in the Philippine media and press. And it is true that the owners have certain interests to protect. And primarily these interests, both in the communities as well as in places like Manila, are political as well as economic interests. But I submit that it is possible, nevertheless, for journalists to find a way to observe the protocol and the ethics of the profession. This will require engagement with publishers and editors. That is why the Center for Media Film Responsibility, for example, has tried to engage owners in the discussion of ethics, in the discussion of issues like ethical compliance and compliance with professional standards. There is an assumption that it's possible to be reasonable, to argue reasonably, and I think there have been certain instances in which this has worked. For example, in 2000 or 2001, certain publishers of newspapers were forced to publish the PCIJ articles on the hidden wealth of President Estrada, despite the fact that those publishers were closely associated with Mr. Estrada. The reason why these articles were published was because the editors of some of these newspapers fought for it. My point is that it is possible to fight for it. It's possible to fight for self-regulation. It's possible to fight for observance of the professional and ethical standards of the profession. We cannot just say that because the ownership is like this, we're just going to have to give up. I mean, if you do that, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy will be that Philippine journalism will continue to go the way it's going and then possibly end up in a place where we don't want people to end up in, no? Meaning it will go to hell. We can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do that because the self-regulatory regime is the only regime that's allowed by the Philippine Constitution, and it's the only thing it's the only kind of regime that we should be open to. So the only thing what we're going to have to do is to find ways to work within the circumstances, no matter how difficult they may be. In the Center for Media Freedom Responsibility, for example, we've been trying to talk about ethics and professional standards and so on for 20 years. And we have managed to move maybe to move about a foot. In other words, the progress has been glacial, but no matter how glacial the progress has been, it is still necessary to continue doing it. So we can't just, to reiterate, we can't just say, okay, let's give up and let things go the way the situation is forcing things to go.
We can only be dictated by vested interests if we allow it to happen.